Hey guys, it's 24 December, better known as Christmas Eve, and if you're following the weather news at all, you may know that a cold front has recently swept across North America, and in particular the Great Plains region of the United States of America, leading to unusually cold temperatures for a majority of the United States, the contiguous 48 United States. Hawaii and Alaska, as far as I know, are more or less in the normal category as far as their seasonal variances go. But here, so in Omaha, Nebraska, and North Dakota and South Dakota, wind chill values have been seen as low as 39 below zero. And actually, indeed, almost 49 below zero is what I have seen in some reports. Here in Wildwood / the Villages, Florida, the temperature got as low as 24 or 23 degrees last night, which is colder than it ever got last year during the winter season. And it is at present 40 degrees here. You may be wondering, how am I swimming in such cold temperatures? And it's because this pool is comfortably heated to a temperature of 80 degrees. So I had this idea, maybe if I went for a swim on a really cold day, I would become more laconic and be more concise with my words and thoughts and ideas. So here I am, and the pool is empty. I'm actually kind of surprised, as the water itself is pretty damn comfortable. You can hear the Christmas music in the background. And if you look closely, you can see steam emanating from the chlorinated waters, which is an indication. Usually when I see this overnight when I work and I see steam coming off the pool, that's a clear indication to me that the temperature outside has plummeted. And the temperature has indeed plummeted, but for one reason or another, I'm not really feeling cold. When I was a little kid, I used to vacation to Las Vegas, and it was very common that earlier in the morning, sometime between 8 and 11 a.m., I would go out to the swimming pool at the hotel, and the outside air temperature would probably be anywhere between 45 and 60 degrees. This would have been around Thanksgiving time in Las Vegas, sometime between 2000 and 2010. 2006. And I just got used to the fact that as long as you stay in the pool, you're going to be comfortable. However, if you're in a pool that's not heated, I would imagine it's pretty uncomfortable. But at this moment, at this point in time, I'm doing all right. So I'm going to swim a lap, and then I'm going to come back and talk about my hopes and dreams. So I have a little bit of anxiety about getting out of the pool and feeling cold temperatures, especially because I have to get all the way back home first. I'm gonna probably be cold, but I brought a fleece jacket purchased at Ross in November of 2021. So let's talk about my hopes and dreams. let's start from the early days. In the early days, the earliest aspiration I can think of, there are actually two of them. One aspiration would be to become a soundtrack composer, and then the other aspiration was to become a city planner slash designer. As far as soundtrack composing goes, I had this vision of making music just like the composer Thomas Newman. And this actually was what funneled my interest in music to begin with, is the idea that I could make music that sounded like Thomas Newman's. It was very revolutionary musical style for me as a young man, or adolescent, I should say. Now, as far as building and designing cities, that goal was directly inspired by Jim Rouse, who was the mastermind behind the town of Columbia, Maryland, right by where I grew up. I thought the idea of having the ability to have a great amount of land and be able to sit down with a team of experts, consultants, and figure out how to work with that land to make a community that was very attractive to people and very comforting to people was a very noble aspiration, and also a very fun aspiration. He has this article called Cities Are Fun, where he talks about being a city planner and says cities are fun, but I can't remember the exact context for that quote, so don't quote me, but you can quote me on the cities are fun part. I was really interested in being a real estate developer just because I thought the thought of going from a barren piece of land to these beautiful, luxurious homes was very interesting. The ironic part is that I now live in a gigantic planned community. It's quite possibly the largest and fastest growing in the world, and that is the Villages, Florida, which explains the swimming pool and also why it's heated and open. Well, all Florida pools are open all year round. You know, it's very amusing. I'm seeing people I'm feeling a little bit of anxiety right now because I feel like I might be being watched from the windows of the recreation center immediately behind me. But anyone who has lived in a colder climate knows that sometimes swimming in a warm body of water on a cold day is actually very therapeutic. I wonder if you can see the steam that just came off the water. Let me test out what it would be like if I was to. Whoa! I'm really not uncomfortable. I think if anything I'm trembling because of the free-form anxiety of perhaps being judged by the people living here who are observing you from the outside. But, and yet nobody is here. Up north they have this thing called the polar bear plunge, which basically is like what I'm doing, except the water is not heated at all. It's literally just whatever the ambient temperature of the water happens to be, which I believe in winter would probably be well below 40 degrees. So it's basically like if you were to plunge into a giant refrigerator that was inundated, what would it be like to swim in that? And I believe the objective is to just stay in as long as possible. Talking about my hopes and dreams again. Right now, I don't think about it as in terms of hopes and dreams anymore. I just think about things in terms of amassing repertoire, creative repertoire, and amassing connections with other people. So if I'm in a place where I can meet new people and get close to them and forge a relationship, if I'm in a place where I can dedicate a portion of my time towards something that is not exactly what I want to do and balance it out by something that is what I want to do, i.e. the act of creation, whatever form that may be, I think I'm going to be happy. And if every year I can look back and say, wow, I made this many things this year, I'm proud. The subtext there is that in the act of creation, you're actually improving. In the act of meeting people and doing new things, you are yourself improving. And I had a little line that went through my head yesterday when people talk about things always change for the better. Well, I had a similar sentiment, which is that things don't always change for the better, but they do always change. And I like the open-endedness of that sentiment a bit more than things changing for the better. And I guess on a certain level it is true that when you hit rock bottom, there's nowhere to go but up. But that isn't necessarily a comforting thought to me, because I don't want to think of wherever I am as being rock bottom. I just want to think of it as being something different. As I've had in the past year some pretty heart-wrenching moments and days and months and sagas. At this point in time, a lot of them are concluded, definitively concluded. So I suppose to tie that back into my discussion of hopes and dreams, I want to be in a place where I can reach all things from where I am. So that would mean no matter what I'm feeling, I can have a healthy point of view about how my life will go going forwards. I want to have the ability that I can achieve what I would like to achieve, and now as I've gotten older I realize it's also important to know exactly what it is you'd like to achieve. I hope that I have the ability to have acceptance for my life circumstances instead of continuing to jam the proverbial round peg into the square hole. I want to be able to see things for what they truly are. If it's a round peg, I have to be able to look at the block and say, no, that's not what I need to jam into this square hole. And if things are consistently a way I think they shouldn't be, then maybe they are in fact the way they should be. I dipped my head under the water with the knowledge that when I emerged from the water, my head would now be at the ambient temperature of the air, which at my last reckoning was 40 degrees and a wind chill of 34. And yet I don't feel particularly disturbed still yet. I guess a good metric for what my hopes and dreams are is to plant a foot in the future and say, what would I like my future to look like? This isn't really a hope or dream. I would like to have a family eventually. I don't know if it will happen anytime very soon. In fact, I think it will probably happen. I would be up in the upper percentile as far as age, so I would probably be among the 2% oldest of parents. If I became a parent, I wouldn't become a parent until I was almost 50, if not older. And that's keeping in mind that plenty of people within my own family, especially on my father's side of the family, did not become, well, continued to become parents well into their 50s. So that gives me hope. However, I would like to be dexterous, flexible, and physically capable of raising children and being able to reciprocate their energy. So I have to figure out, I suppose that's a goal, is to maintain my youth as it continues to drain from my soul with the tolling of the clock. Yes, it would be nice to have a family, and having a family, what I really meant to accomplish with saying that was that I need to have some sort of a career where I'm making enough money that I can sustain that family. At this time, I'm making exactly the right amount of money to support myself, and that is actually somewhat of a falsehood, because I'm not exactly supporting myself. I'm not paying rent. I pay about $400 monthly for a condo association fee. I pay for internet, that's about $50 a month. Gas, food is probably my greatest expenditure, other than the inner laconicism is starting to kick in. I would rather just enjoy this beautiful moment than talk about my hopes and dreams. And now I will swim one more lap and bid everybody good night. All right, everybody. I've talked about hopes and dreams. Now it's time to talk about one more thing. Very quickly. I'm not out of breath, I'm just anxious. I have to learn how to not be so anxious when it's not required of me to be anxious. You ready to see me get out of the water? As it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas plays in the background. I have no real goals for the future. I think I trust myself to accomplish something when it needs to be accomplished. The last big thing I accomplished was probably moving down here, and it was quite a big thing to accomplish. If I look back at my life in 2020, 2021, points before, I don't think that my lifestyle was inappropriate or bad or anything like that. I don't think this is how I'm supposed to do this. It's actually, I'm glad I came down here, because it's been a difficult process, but it's also been, I've learned a lot of things I needed to learn. I've learned a lot about acceptance, about not looking forward and not looking back, or looking forward but in a practical and metaphorical sense. Not looking back, not idealizing the past, not glorifying what's already happened, because what happened in the past is not representative of anything but what happened in the past. The moment speaks for itself, and the present speaks for itself, and the future is impossible to know. Everything is distinct. Every moment is distinct from the one before it and from the one after it. And to be able to be there and acknowledge what it is and what it isn't objectively is probably something I've been trying to learn, to undo the concept of a narrative within my own life, to accept irregularities and awkwardness and discomfort and anxiety. That's just part of life. That's normal. And if I'm tired for a long time, maybe this is just a period in my life where I spend a lot of time fatigued. Or maybe this is just what it means to be alive, that you are tired. You get hungry a lot. You have to pee a lot. So why wouldn't it be the same with sleep? I think if you take a lot of the pressure to accomplish things out of those things, you'll find yourself a lot more open to learning the actual skills and techniques that will help you accomplish those things. But there's not enough emphasis placed on knowing what you want in life. There's not enough emphasis placed on evaluating who you are and what you're good at and what you're not good at. It's kind of robotic. You just go from one stage to the next, and what happens will happen, and that's fine. That's where I am. But I feel like there's not enough time for reflection, and the reflection, if it does come, it doesn't necessarily come at meaningful points in life, because people tend to be optimistic, and optimism doesn't necessarily promote reflection. Well, positivity doesn't necessarily promote reflection. I'm not sure where I'm going with that thread, but just some thoughts. And now I will sign out. Well, first I'll get out of the water, spare you the ghastly sight of my chest. So let me turn the camera down. All right, everybody, I'm officially out of the water. I'm gonna pick up my pile of stuff, and it's been fun. So, but the fun is over. Here's my jacket. It's my water bottle that I wasn't drinking. I haven't taken a sip from in the last 2 months, and I will see you guys on the other side of existence.